technical expertise with strategic foresight to protect critical assets and foster cybersecurity resilience. Hello, sir. It's really great to have you here. आपसे आज बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिलने वाला है, I guess.
Hey Sneha, hi. Good evening, and really looking forward. And thank you so much for setting up the context and for those, the glorifying words. Really looking forward, and again, thank you so much for inviting me here.
Okay, sir. I would like to start from the initial. What drew you to the field of cybersecurity? What inspired you to pursue this field initially?
Cybersecurity was something is always fascinated me. It's the technology, especially I would say, right? From the very
Yeah,
beginning school days, say when the computer landed in our school, so my mind was always curious to do something off the beat with those computer learning is was fine, but उनके साथ हमेशा कुछ अलग से करने का, right? That always kept me engaged with the technology and with the computer, right? Then at my
yeah,
home always did something which was awkward, downloading something which was not appropriate, and then make my computer worse, right? And then see and understand why that happened and why, how basically that thing did not
yeah,
work appropriately, how hacker works. So all these thing curiosity always keep my minds stretched towards the cybersecurity, right? And then I was super fascinated that no, I think this is something that where I have more interest and I need to go and further pursue my interest as well as career also, right? And then
yeah.
in fact when I joined Navy, right, in the very beginning, right, Navy gave me that opportunity where I could learn and explore and start my career as like mainstream into cybersecurity.
Okay, that's great. So you mentioned about your service for the country in the Indian Navy. What skills from your Navy service have been particularly valuable in your cybersecurity career?
Know the discipline, right, the punctuality, right, the
Yeah,
bias correction, right, and lead from the front, right? These are the core values of the armed forces, which I'm still carrying. And I would say ये help करती हैं, like wherever you go, if you are disciplined, if you are punctual, if you are leading from the front, being as a leader, right? If you are showing the dedications, right? तो ये चीजें help करती हैं आप किसी भी career में हो, right? So when I started, the cybersecurity, in fact, I would say, and I take all the pride in saying that I started my journey of cybersecurity from the Navy itself, right? Where
yeah,
within that cyber wing, we set up the process and policies for the Navy, right? तो उसके बाद में then वो सारी चीजें सीखना, नेवी के लिए सेटअप करना, और then I started when I started my corporate journey after the
yeah,
retirement, right? वो legacy I carried, right? Those discipline, skill, technical skills was one part, but वो जो soft skills थी in terms of those core values, I still carry, and they are helping me to achieve greater heights into the cyber security also.
yeah. Because I guess हर career में technical skills तो obviously important होती हैं cyber security में, but soft skills तो हर career के लिए important होती है.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, तो जब तक आप उन चीजों में अच्छे नहीं हो तो आपकी टेक्निकल स्किल्स विल नॉट बी वैल्यूड मच, बट अगर आपकी सॉफ्ट स्किल अच्छी हैं जहाँ पे आप अपने एप्टीट्यूड को, अपने एटीट्यूड को, अपने कैरेक्टर को डेमोन्स्ट्रेट करते हो अलोंग विद योर टेक्निकल स्किल्स, राइट, तो दैट बिकम्स चेरी ऑन द केक, राइट? तो वही चीज नेवी ने सिखाई, एंड उन्हीं सब वैल्यूज को आगे फॉरवर्ड करके जब मैं कॉर्पोरेट में आया, तो वहां पे बहुत एक सपोर्ट मिला उन चीजों का कि नहीं, डिसिप्लिन इज समथिंग विच ऑलवेज कीप यू टाइट, राइट? पंक्चुअलिटी इज समथिंग विच ऑलवेज टॉट यू द वैल्यू ऑफ द टाइम. सो उन सब चीज ने greatly they supported, and still they are helping me to uh, achieve the heights basically, or whatever I do ensure that success, or at least they are finishing in time. So yes, Navy
Yeah,
helped me a lot.
of course. So that's great to hear कि किस तरीके से आपने अपना करियर स्टार्ट किया और किस तरीके से इंडियन नेवी ने आपके करियर को हेल्प करी. So, with over 20 years of 20 years in the field of cybersecurity. Would you say or some of the most significant milestones in your career?
Tough questions. I mean, there are many, but if I have to pick a couple of, but let me start with the Navy itself, because when we started in Navy, bringing those cyber practices, right, starting those cyber initiatives into the Navy, that was very initial time for the Navy also, and I would say for the armed forces also, right. So एक तरीके से हम लोगों ने वहाँ पे सेटअप किया चीज़ों को, राइट, पॉलिसीज को बनाना, प्रोसेस को बनाना, कैसे चीज़ें काम करना है, कैसे चीज़ों को आगे लेके बढ़ना है इन टर्म्स ऑफ सिक्योरिटी, तो उनके लिए क्या क्या चाहिए, क्या क्या चीज़ें, फिर दूसरी फोर्सेस के साथ कोलैबोरेशन, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के
Hmm.
साथ कोलैबोरेशन करना, राइट। तो वो चीज़ें सेटअप करना इन नेवी फर्स्ट टाइम was something I always admire by the Navy, and I always take very much enthusiasm by saying ki we started the cyber practice. I can say we, there were few hands, we were like the founding members, right, though it was started, but we were the founding member to start the cyber operation into the Navy, right. So this is something I always take pride. But apart from this, right, in corporate training, if I have to say now, there were like few things that I basically was involved or as a key stakeholder, जिन्होंने काफी impact डाला उस organization के ऊपर। let's say HCL में हम लोगों ने threat management का एक start किया था, एंड उसकी वजह से काफी चीजें इम्प्रूव हुई, काफी इम्पैक्ट आया, काफी ऑपरेशंस में काफी चीजें इम्प्रूव हुई। एंड उसके बाद जैसे डेलॉयट में, अमेजोन में भी, इफ आई हैव टू से, कुछ इनिशिएटिव ऐसे थे जो हमने स्टार्ट किए वहां पे विद द टीम, राइट, और उनकी वजह से ऑपरेशन काफी इनहेंस हुआ। देयर वर द efficiency increased into the overall the business objective also। तो वो सारी चीजें हैं जहाँ पे मैं हमेशा वो बोलता हूँ कि नहीं, वो चीजें की। एंड needless to say, I mean, team was always there, their motivation, their work, so उन लोगों की वजह से वो सारी चीजें हो पाई, because cyber security it's not a individual game, it's always about
Yeah.
team, right? So अगर आपकी टीम के साथ आपका कनेक्ट है, आपकी टीम को आप मोटिवेट करते हो, you being as leader, right, so credit goes to them, but you just present them, right? So this is how, तो जितने भी achievement थे, they all were valuable, they all were possible just because of my team was with me, and they were skilled enough to achieve those milestones।
Of course, team is always important.
और इसके साथ में एक चीज और बोलना चाहूंगा स्नेहा यहाँ पे कि since I always been into this mentorship, right, I always go and talk to the student, aspiring candidate who want to start their career into cyber security। एक चीज मैं यहाँ पे ये भी बोलना चाहूंगा कि I always go and talk to the student, right? So almost 100 plus students, and I would say many, right? I say that I have at least provide them guidance or mentorship, based on my experience and my knowledge, whatever I'm carrying into security or those soft skill. And I would say many of them have started their journey into cybersecurity career, and for me, it's like it's a great thing that at least I'm able to share my knowledge with them, and by
Yeah.
using their tips and those suggestion and direction, they students or those candidate have started their journey into cybersecurity. So this is also one of the milestone which I would like to mention here.
Okay, so that's great to hear. Especially the mentorship part is we always eager to find some good mentors in our life, especially when we want to start some good career. So अगर आपके जैसे mentors मिल जाते हैं who guide like this, it's always a blessing.
Hmm.
So talking about incident management and threat management, what are some crucial steps you recommend when responding to a security incident to contain the manage and threat effectively?
First of all, you need to calm basically and see what is happening, right? Otherwise, during the incident, people get pressurized, people get panic, फिर वो अच्छे से काम नहीं कर पाते, and then things went in a different way, as expected नहीं होती हैं, even if you have a process in place, even if you have tools in place, right? So handling an incident effectively, right, I mean, there are prescribed format. There are prescribed framework also, which if followed properly, I think we can handle any type of incident properly, right? First of all, अगर मैं उस चीज के बारे में बात करूँ तो इंसिडेंट के टाइम पे you have to take action, you have to take decision, sorry, it's not something that action will, but decision लेना होता है वहां पे कि ये चीज करनी है अभी, and that is short, that is definite, right? वहां पे आप ट्रायल एंड एरर बहुत कम करने को होता है,
Hmm.
because an organization is already under attack, right? You have to take decision, right? एंड डिसीजन लेना इज ऑलवेज अ प्रेशर थिंग, राइट? बिकॉज आपका एक डिसीजन चीजों को गलत तरीके से लेके जा सकता है, राइट? तो उसके लिए अगर मेरे को अगर वो देखना पड़े स्नेहा, तो मैं ये चीज बोलूंगा कि फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वी नीड टू राइट वे, इन अ राइट वे वी नीड टू आइडेंटिफाई और डिटेक्ट द इशू और द इंसिडेंट, उसको किस सीवियरिटी, कितना इम्पैक्ट उसकी वजह से हो सकता है, पहले हमको वो आइडेंटिफाई करना है। बिकॉज अगर वो आइडेंटिफाई और डिटेक्ट हो जाता है, देन यू पुट योर एफर्ट्स, योर फोर्स अकॉर्डिंगली। नहीं तो होता है कि बिना सोचे समझे हम अपना पूरा ताकत वहां पे लगा देते हैं, एंड वेयर इज दैट इज नॉट, that was not required at all, right? तो first of all we have to understand the impact and the severity कि कितना हमको वहां पे अपना एफर्ट लगाना है, क्या क्या स्किल सेट वहां पे रिक्वायर्ड चाहिए होगा, राइट? जब एक बार ये चीज डिफाइन हो जाती है, ये चीज आइडेंटिफाई हो जाती है, देन यू विल हैव टू आइसोलेट और कंटेन द सिचुएशन और दोज एसेट्स, बेसिकली इन टेक्निकल टर्मिनोलॉजी, कि वट एवर हैव बीन आइडेंटिफाइड एज इम्पैक्टेड और अंडर अटैक, यू हैव टू आइसोलेट देम, यू हैव टू कंटेन देम, राइट? लेट्स से आर्मी में अगर कोई वाउंडेड सोल्जर है, तो हमको उनको पीछे लेके जाना है ताकि वो
Right.
हमारे वो ना बन जाए, राइट? सो सेम वे इन दिस, इन साइबर सिक्योरिटी, अगर हमारे जो इम्पैक्टेड एसेट्स हैं हम उनको पहले आइसोलेट कर देंगे, ताकि उनकी वजह से हम और प्रेशर में ना आए, उनकी वजह से और अंडर अटैक ना आए, राइट? तो उनको आइसोलेट कंटेन करने के बाद में देन विल मूव फॉरवर्ड, राइट? तो जब हम ये चीज डिफाइन कर लेते हैं कि दिस एरिया, द सिचुएशन हैज बीन कंटेन्ड, अभी बाहर नहीं जाएगा कुछ भी, नाउ वी आर इन अ सैंडबॉक्स एनवायरनमेंट, राइट? तब हम आगे जाते हैं, देन वी डू द रिकवरी पार्ट, द इरेडिकेशन पार्ट, जहां पे हम उस रूट कॉज, जो भी वायरस होगा, मेलवेयर होगा, या जो भी होगा, उसको वी विल ट्राई टू रिमूव फ्रॉम द सिस्टम, या वी मे हैव टू रिस्टोर द सिस्टम आल्सो, राइट? ताकि हम अपने अपने जो बिजनेस को रिज्यूम कर सकें नॉर्मली, राइट? तो और उसके लास्ट में आता है कि लर्निंग, ये क्यों हुआ था, राइट? और अगर जिस रीजन से हुआ था, व्हाट कैन वी डू टू ओवरकम फ्रॉम दैट इशू, सो दैट इन फ्यूचर सेम इशू फिर से ना हो, राइट? तो ये वाले जो स्टेप्स फॉलो करके बेसिकली हम किसी भी इंसिडेंट को या फिर किसी भी अटैक को, फॉलोइंग अंडर अंडर द थ्रेट मैनेजमेंट कैटेगरी, राइट, उसको इफेक्टिवली हैंडल कर सकते हैं, राइट? बट अगेन, skills here is also required is to keeping yourself calm, keeping your team motivated, and telling them that hey, we can manage easily, right? These things are paramount, and उसके बाद में जितनी भी चीज आती हैं, they falls under the technical part, which I think every incident responder or team is capable enough to handle. But अगर आप शांत हैं, then you can easily handle.
Calmness is important for these kind of things, especially when you are in a situation that things are going rapidly. Yeah, so.
Hmm.
Okay, so since risk management is a crucial part of cybersecurity, so how do you approach in identifying, accessing, and mitigating risks?
So risk and management, there are two words, right? So managing the risk is basically risk management. What risks are you are having in your organization? How you will manage them. So managing means either you accept them, either you eliminate them, either you uh, basically fill those gaps, where we say that this is the risk, or either you remove the complete risk, right? These are some of the strategy we generally take into the cybersecurity, right? So to manage the risk, first you have to identify the risk, and risk could be on your people part, to your process and your technology, right? So first, let's identify how many risks we have, right? To our people, maybe to our process and technology, right? But for the sake of this, let's say to our hardware, to our technology part, right? What risk they are carrying, right? And what impact due to those risks, right, can happen to that organization. Maybe let's suppose there are some critical risk identified, right? So those critical risks and where the probability is also high, where the occurrence is also very high, the impact of those risk, if get exploited by a threat actor or a hacker, would be very high, where things may not be able to handle properly, right? So first let us identify, right, and then let us go ahead and see like how can I manage, or how can I treat the risk accordingly based on the what business basically want, right? Then I'll take that approach, whether I want to treat that risk, by eliminating, by removing that technology itself, or by transferring those risk, or by accepting those risks, right, based on the discussion with the business stakeholder, by the technology partner and my leadership, right? Then I'll take that approach, that how I will treat that risk, right? उसके बाद में एक अप्रोच आती है फिर कि मेरे को उनको जो जितने भी रिस्क आइडेंटिफाई हुए हैं, राइट, उन रिस्क को किस तरीके से ऑटोमेट करना, सो दैट इन फ्यूचर दे विल नॉट अकर अगेन। उसके लिए भी एक रिस्क ट्रीटमेंट में ही आता है कि हम उसको एलिमिनेट ही कर देते हैं, या फिर रिस्क को बेसिकली वहां पे उसको पूरा का पूरा खत्म कर देते हैं कि वो रिस्क नहीं आएगा, राइट, बाय पैचिंग द
Mhm.
सॉफ्टवेयर, बाय अप्लाइंग सम कंपनसेशन कंट्रोल, और हम उस टेक्नोलॉजी को पूरा का पूरा वहां से उस टैग से रिमूव कर सकते हैं, या फिर उसके आगे लेट्स से देयर आर सम लेजेसी सिस्टम होते हैं जिनको हम अपग्रेड नहीं कर सकते हैं, जिनमें वल्नरेबिलिटी हमेशा रहेंगी, और उन लेजेसी सिस्टम पे हमेशा कुछ ना कुछ बिजनेस क्रिटिकल एप्लीकेशन चलनी होती हैं, राइट। तो उनके लिए हम देन वी पुट कंपनसेटरी कंट्रोल, लेट्स से उनको सेव करने के लिए वी पुट एडिशनल सिक्योरिटी कंट्रोल, राइट। तो इस तरीके से हम अपने रिस्क मैनेजमेंट को देखते हैं, बाय कीपिंग द बिजनेस ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑल्सो ऑन टू द हाई, बाय कीपिंग द रिस्क ऑल्सो ऑन टू द हाई, कि इनकी वजह से इम्पैक्ट नहीं होना चाहिए, दैट रिस्क ऑलवेज शुड बी कैलकुलेटेड,
Yeah.
एक्सेप्टेबल। तो इस तरीके से रिस्क मैनेजमेंट को मैं देखता हूँ हमेशा कि इट शुड ऑलवेज बी विद इन द बाउंड्रीज, राइट। अगर बाउंड्री क्रॉस भी हो रहा है तो क्या हम उसको एक्सेप्ट कर सकते हैं, इज इट गोइंग बियॉन्ड आवर रिस्क एपेटाइट, राइट और नॉट। तो मेरा रिस्क मैनेज करने का हमेशा यही तरीका रहता है। हम्म।
Okay. Uh, that's a really thing that I would like to ask
हम्म।
कि रिस्क मैनेजमेंट के लिए सो अभी जानकर मेरे को समझ में आया ही है चीजें
हम्म।
बट देयर इज आल्सो वन थिंग कि इन टुडेज टाइम द अटैक सर्फेस आर इंक्रीजिंग सिग्निफिकेंटली with the advancement of in technology. So, what would you say are the biggest challenges in vulnerability management today, and how do you suggest organization prioritize their efforts?
I think you rightly said that the threat landscape is dynamically increasing. Every day you found a new tool, new technology incur, right?
Yeah.
AI, ML, IoT and whatnot. I think slowly they are becoming past, right? उसके अलावा और चीजें आ रही हैं दिन ब दिन, राइट। तो जैसे जैसे टेक्नोलॉजी स्टैक बढ़ता जा रहा है उसके साथ साथ यू आर ओपनिंग न्यू डोर फॉर हैकर्स आल्सो, न्यू डोर फॉर वल्नरेबिलिटीज, राइट, बिकॉज इट्स ऑलवेज technology keep changing, software developer have to keep writing to ensure that they are adding new functionality, new feature, new the capabilities to their technology, right? तो ये जो path होता है, right, इसके बीच में then there are few gaps, right, because no one is perfect, right, we learn by
Yeah.
mistake, right? तो when we learn by mistake तो उसके बीच में जो gap होता है we call them a bug or vulnerability, उससे ही वो vulnerabilities आती हैं, right। तो जब वो vulnerabilities आने start हो जाती हैं then we see a different horizon in the organization, right? So the main challenges I see in the vulnerability management program, I think, and this is based on my experience also, is the sheer number of the vulnerability, right? You, let's suppose an organization is huge, right? You run a scan and you found thousands of the vulnerability. Now patching them is the biggest challenge, right? You will be like on your toe to chase those people, chase the business owner, to ensure or to convince them कि इनको जाके patch कर लो, so that you are not on the risk and this thing. So number of vulnerability, I think, sheer, and this is one of the very biggest challenge, right? The another challenge that I see is basically, as I mentioned earlier, that technology stack is dynamically changing, right? Covering the vulnerabilities for those technology also is the biggest challenge, right? Sometimes you do not have the patch, sometimes you do not have the solution, that if the vulnerability has been found, how can I fix this? Maybe you will be on the risk at till that time until you have the patch. तो वो भी एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज होता है। देन देयर इज अनदर चैलेंज, व्हेन वी यूज दीज सिक्योरिटी टूल, फॉल्स सिग्नल, राइट? समटाइम दे जनरेट लॉट ऑफ फॉल्स सिग्नल, they says ki I found this vulnerability, whereas that technology itself is not present. So false signal is also is one of the challenge that I see. Then uh, setting up the right the priority, right severity, right, based on the asset that the technology is using, sometimes that is also misaligned in the organization. One of the challenges that I see, and due to which sometimes we overlook the right risk and then patch something which was not required at that priority. That is also one of the challenge, right? Now to overcome these challenges, right, what we can do basically nowadays, we are talking a lot about the automation, and this is helping. Automation can help us, patching, finding, and ensuring that we are safe from those vulnerability is very big, the technology and the process, right? Now all these tool can falls under a use automation, right, where the tool will automatically identify, automatically suggest, automatically patch those vulnerability on those system. Those are the one level system basically to do that vulnerability, right? Then the identification and detection, sorry, of these vulnerability, setting up the right assets, the severity, right, in advance, or by putting up the right risk management assessment, report, and those finding with your vulnerability management program is something, a solution that I always suggest. And I have seen also, if these two function are aligned, तो चीजें काफी कम हो जाती हैं, अंडरस्टैंडिंग काफी डेवलप हो जाती है. एंड देन थर्ड थिंग बेसिकली कि आपको वल्नरेबिलिटी मैनेजमेंट प्रोग्राम को लीडरशिप के थ्रू ड्राइव करवाना है, राइट? इट्स नॉट समथिंग, इट शुड बी ओनली टीम एफर्ट, राइट? क्योंकि आपका
Yes.
थ्रेट लैंडस्केप एक्सपोज हो रहा है इंटरनेट पे, लोगों को पता लग रहा है, राइट? तो दिस शुड बी ड्रिवन बाय द लीडरशिप, राइट, ताकि लोगों के अंदर वो जो सीरियसनेस है, लोगों के अंदर जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी आए कि वी विल हैव टू टेक दिस सीरियस प्रोग्राम. तो ये वाली रिकमेंडेशन है, और ये मैंने देखे भी हैं इन इन प्रैक्टिकलिटी, कि अगर ये सारी चीजें अगर आती हैं इन फोर्स फॉर वल्नरेबिलिटी मैनेजमेंट, आई थिंक द सक्सेस रेट इज वेरी वेरी हाई.
Yes. So leadership is the thing you said, ki more
लीडरशिप
important.
most important, I would say. Leadership should
Most im-
drive this. I think if not drive, then delegation should be accordingly. I mean, they should have a very upper hand to this vulnerability management program, because it's something that it is exposing you to the world, right? And you
Yeah.
never want you to show that how many doors I have opened which I don't have lock for.
So you also mentioned about automation, right?
Hmm.
So since automation is transferring cybersecurity,
Hmm.
so do you think it can ever replace human intelligence and human touch?
It can never. I mean, it will. There will always be a requirement for a human to evaluate, to put that
Correct.
judgment, brain judgment, and to take a final decision. I am a very big advocate that a human has to be there. You remove the first, second layer. You remove the maximum, the man force, right? But a human has to be there on the last step to verify, to validate, and see like how this automation work, whether the decision or whether the output is going to be perfect or the great for the organization. So a human has to be there, right? Because it's ultimately human who is
Yeah.
building or who's creating this automation. They can make mistake, right? System is ultimately built by the human only. They can also create mistakes. So a human brain has to be there in the I think in the last at least.
So are there any areas that benefits most by the automation?
See, every domain, I mean, particularly if we talk about cybersecurity, let's say in
Yes.
cybersecurity, automation is currently playing a huge role, right? So when you work in a, team like who is monitoring the alert on a daily basis, right? As I said, the like number of vulnerability, they are sheer in number, right? They are huge, right? Likewise the alert is huge, right? And finding out the actual evil, the actual attackers, event out of those, let's say hundreds of alert, sometime becomes, and I would say nowadays has become very tedious task manually for the security analyst, right? So to overcome from this, we have built tons of not tons of, but we have built many playbooks, right? Based on the requirement, based on the alert type, right? So when we found, right, when we defined or when we determined that this type of alert is something not required, false positive, or it's a known activity, right, due to which there is no harm to the organization, right? So we can put those type of signal of alert or event into the automation. Now how that works, the moment next time that type of event, activity, or alert happen, it will automatically be treated or remediated, right? So there is no need for a human to go, because enough research, enough the amount of the analysis has been invested to create that automation. So now there is no human required. So these kind of small repetitive tasks can be automated completely. Let's say the report creation, right? Leadership need reports regularly, that how we are doing, how good we are doing, where we are lacking. Now all these can be done by the metrics and the KPI, and in the form of reports. Now automation can also help to extract the data from these tools, and then create those reports on the fly, right? Now
Yeah.
automation can also help in this vulnerability, now where I can see how many vulnerabilities are there, and now where I need to put more focus. Now your automation, you have defined, let's say, hey, if the critical vulnerability found in these critical assets, which is very critical to my business, go ahead and patch those, right? Yes, there are some if and else is required, there are some condition needs to be there, but automation can also handle the the vulnerability management and patching also. Now these are few, but there are many others automation that we are currently doing into cybersecurity, and we are saving a lot of time. Hmm.
If we go back to the topic where we were discussing threat management, there's one more question I want to ask.
Hmm.
With the evolving threat landscape, how do
Hmm.
you stay updated on emerging threats, and how important is threat intelligence in primitive defense?
See, staying update about the emerging threat, Sneha, मैं इस चीज को आदत बोलूंगा. I would call this a habit, right? So where you always want to learn what is happening into the world of cyber, right? How cyber
Yeah.
threat actors वो किस किस टेक्निक को यूज करके क्या क्या नई नई टूल्स को लेके आके अटैक कर रहे हैं, किस किस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन पे किन किन चीजों का वो फायदा उठाते हैं, राइट? तो वो एक हमेशा एक आदत होती है, बिकॉज यू ऑलवेज वांट टू कीप अपडेट. अगर आप कहीं भी आप मिस कर रहे हो, दो टूल्स आर हेल्पिंग नाउ इट इज, बट यू एज अ प्रोफेशनल यू कैन बी आस्क, यू कैन बी यू मे हैव टू टॉक इन एनी ऑफ द फोरम और टू लीडरशिप ऑल्सो. सो मतलब आपको अपडेट रखना ही पड़ता है अपने आप को, बीइंग इनटू दिस फील्ड. सो आई जनरली टेक अप्रोच की I follow, there are some reputed and trusted source, let's say MSRC, MSFT, जो Microsoft के threat intelligence sources हैं. Since there is an organization जो publish करती रहती है report time to time. Then there are the dark reading, the hacker news, and उसके अलावा vendor के भी बहुत सारे हैं, जिनके पोर्टल्स होते हैं जहाँ पे जाके आप इजीली थ्रेट इंटेलिजेंस रिलेटेड, जैसे नॉर्मली एंड लाइकवाइज, तो वहां से जाके यू कैन गेट ऑल दिस इंफॉर्मेशन इन डिटेल्ड मैनर, राइट? Study and see
Yeah.
how you can adopt the information from those reports, right? Uske alawa, attending those webinars, going to the conferences, talking to the vendors, talking to your peers who is working in different the organization, see like how they are affected, what the new trends that they are sharing, then sharing that knowledge without revealing the confidential about your org, right? And which helps basically, right? And then uske baad mein आई वुड से कि ये सुपर इंपॉर्टेंट चीजें हो जाती हैं, राइट? सो ऑल दीज स्टेप, क्योंकि इनसे आपको ना कॉन्टेक्स्ट मिलता है, उनसे आपको
Yeah.
एक आइडिया और भी मिलता है कि हाउ यू कैन क्रिएट स्ट्रेटेजी, डिटेक्शन स्ट्रेटेजी या प्रिवेंशन स्ट्रेटेजी फॉर योर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और फॉर योर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, राइट? तो क्योंकि कई बार क्या होता है कि अटैक करके, व्हाट आई हैव सीन आल्सो, जस्ट टू गिव इन वन एग्जांपल, कई बार क्या होता है कि आप अफेक्टेड नहीं हो फॉर फ्रॉम वन अटैक, दूसरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, राइट? तो कई बार होता क्या है कि व्हेन यू हैव दीज कनेक्ट, यू हैव दीज नॉलेज, यू आर फॉलोइंग दीज राइट, तो कई बार ये चीज मैंने खुद पर्सनली देखी है कि उस अटैक करके आपके ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में आने से पहले ही आपने प्रिवेंशन स्ट्रेटेजी अपनी बिल्ड कर ली है. दैट हेल्प्स, राइट? तो
Yeah.
वहां पे ये चीजें मैटर करती हैं कि अगर आप कनेक्ट रहते हो, पढ़ते हो, अगर आप को पता है चीजें कि कौन सा अटैक कहाँ पे, कौन सा थ्रेट एक्टर कहाँ पे है, राइट। तो वो सारी चीजें आपको कई बार अटैक होने से पहले ही बचा देती हैं। अगर अटैक हुआ भी है तो उससे रिकवर करने में बहुत आसानी रहती है। तो थ्रेट इंटेलिजेंस प्ले huge part, right? Because every attack comes, majority of the attack comes from the outside, and they comes with a technique, they comes with the identity, which is a threat intelligence for us.
Of course, as we all say, prevention is better than cure.
Okay, all right.
So, for everyone who is watching and from this field, you should be updated about any threat or any new thing is going on in your field.
And nowadays, I
So,
will also say that it's not something
yeah,
the organization is only impacting from the cyber attack, right? Cyber, this threat actor, they are targeting the innocent people also. They do not even
right.
discriminate क्योंकि उनको use करना उस information को, and you, me as a normal human are also under attack, right? So if you are not using, or if you are using that technology which is under attack, so very much required. I mean, just for the normal people also, I would say.
Yeah, that's right, actually. Um, from this thing, I would like to ask that, as you say, we all know that you are a mentor and you're a ni very great mentor, I guess. And everyone want to be a mentor like you and wants a mentor like you. So, talking about mentorship and team leading, how do you approach building and leading a successful cybersecurity team, especially under high stress conditions?
See, my approach is always you have, or you should have a great connect with your team, right? You should know the in a nutshell, like pros and cons of your folks, right? कौन अच्छा कहाँ पे है, किस में क्या कमी है, कहाँ पे challenges हैं, ताकि आप उनसे बात करके उन चीज़ों को ठीक कर सको, उनको राइट टाइम पे अवार्ड, उनको राइट टाइम पे रिकग्नाइज करना, राइट, उनको मोटिवेट रखना, मोरल हाई रखना, राइट। अभी कहने को ये चीज़ें बहुत आसान है, बट when you do these things in practicality, they become sometime, because when you work in a team, every member of your team is like the fingers of your hand, right? Different mindset, different capacity, different capability, thinking process, what time they will be on the good mood and whatnot, right? So you as a lead, you as a manager, you as a leader, it's your responsibility to understand your team first very deeply, ताकि आप उनको एक बैलेंस बना के चल सको कि नाउ दिस इज द बेस लाइन, राइट? एवरीवन हैज अ डिफरेंट पर्सोना, एवरी हैज अ डिफरेंट अप्रोच, राइट, टुवर्ड्स द वर्क। आपका रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बनता है कि आप उसको एक बैलेंस बना के चलो, राइट? तब उनको लगता है कि नाउ एवरीवन इज हर्ड, everyone is included, right? ऐसा नहीं कि मतलब only one person is being given all the priorities and privilege whereas others are ignored and isolated, no। तो you as a leader वो इंश्योर करता है। और जब वो ये वाला एक फील आप अपनी टीम के अंदर पोर इन कर देते हो, तब देन योर टीम स्टार्ट ट्रस्टिंग इन यू डीपली, राइट? तब वो आपके लिए
Yeah.
वो एक्सटेंड करना स्टार्ट करते हैं, देन दे स्टार्ट having that sense कि yes, we are in a good hand, basically we are not in a headless missile, right? तो वो सारी चीजें मैं हमेशा प्रैक्टिकलिटी में देखा हूँ। ये सारी चीजें जितने भी आई हैं अभी ना, दे ऑल कम फ्रॉम द नेवी, राइट? बिकॉज नेवी taught us how to lead, how to basically go and lead your people, how, because it's always, it's in armed forces, it's always about your morale, right? Because situation is always under pressure, if morale is not high you cannot fight a war, right? तो वो सारी चीजें, as I said in the very beginning of this, कि legacy is being carried from the navy itself, right? uh, Whenever I lead team, in fact now also I ensure that my team feels supported, right? They feel like they are being appreciated for their work, for their wins. And we always appreciate and I think celebrate our the hard time also. Sometimes you, every time you cannot win, right? Sometimes you also have to see a tough time, right? We also celebrate that with the team, that no worries, we put our best, right? We had no control on the outcome, right? Sometime, right? So you, let's celebrate that also, celebrate the hard work, right? So and then providing them the recognition in front of the leadership, right? When your team does good, right, make sure that they are known, right? They are being accredited, they are being acknowledged by everyone in the organization, right? So yes, छोटी छोटी चीजें but very effective and very impactful for the direction and my reporting. I think they always help me to ensure that my team is achieving the objective, and I can call that like successful team basically. and they all derived these all tactics, techniques, and all these, the processes and best practices derived from the armed forces, needless to say.
Of course. And I guess Navy is played a ro big role in your life.
Significantly huge role.
Yeah. So you're known for your mentorship, as I said already. So what do you believe in essential for effective mentorship in this field? For young professionals entering cybersecurity, what key skills and attribute do you recommend they develop?
Cool. So see, well, good mentorship is always about listening, right? Because until unless you do not understand the concern, the problem, the issues that you are going to resolve, or you are going to talk about, or you are going to give suggestion for to your mentee, or your, like, the to the students or the candidate, I think you're not a good mentor, right? So first you have to listen, right? And when you listen, you grasp more, then you create strategy inside your brain, right? That how I have to speak, and what I have for this problem, right? So you have to listen, right? So, and then understanding the problem, as I said, and the concerns, right? Third thing is guiding based on then experience, as I said. When you listen, then you understand the problem, and then you suggest based on the your experience. So listening is the paramount and super critical here, right? For the young professional and the aspiring, candidate who want to start their career in security, or let's say any stream in the corporate, right? I would say that focus on learning the basics, right? But let me just stay, focus on the security part. Focus on learning the basics, right? Now those basics could be network, right? How network works, how operating system work, how these things are connected, right? And second thing, and when you have that, knowledge basic that I know now, maybe then you can start learning slowly the security, the basic security concepts, right? And but along with this, I would also, highly recommend that never ignore the soft skill. Never ever underestimate the soft skill part. You can be a good technical, profession, but your skills, if you are not a good communicator, if you're not a not humble, if you're not, acknowledged as a good speaker or this thing, I think you maybe lack into the journey of your growth into your career. So I think uh, those soft skill also play a very crucial part. Think big, stay always curious, ask questions, right? And demonstrate the continuous learning. So these are some advice I would say. And I think I am also, practice always, and always, tell my team to, you know keep practicing. This is something that can put you on the right track of the growth, as well as the successful, the professional in any of the stream that you are choosing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's a great advice I've got from you because I'm also a young professional from this field. Not professional actually, but learner. Okay, so I would like to ask a question from GRC. GRC is an essential component of securing an organization. So, what, according to you, are some foundational aspects of cybersecurity governance that organization often overlook?
I think this is an important, question, Sneha, I would say. So
Yeah,
many of the organization I have seen, and sometimes I also feel in my organization, that the clearly define the roles and responsibility of the team and the individuals are not prescribed, right? Sometime, right? And due to which what happen, the things get overlapped, कि मैं ये चीज नहीं करूंगा, my team is not responsible for this, right? And then due to this, the miscommunication, or due to this, the clarity, sometimes things get delayed, and then you are on the risk of something, right? Maybe the project delay, maybe something, then technologies cannot be deployed. तो ये जब जब रोल्स एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी क्लियरली डिफाइन नहीं होते हैं ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में, अपनी टीम के, इंडिविजुअल्स के, तो ये प्रॉब्लम्स आती हैं जहाँ पे चीज़ें डिले होती हैं, एंड देन ओनरशिप नहीं आती है फिर. नोबडी विल टेक द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बिकॉज इट इज नॉट क्लियर, राइट? कि मुझे क्या करना है, उस टीम को क्या करना है, हाउ विल आई कोलैबोरेट. तो वो चीज़ें होना एक सबसे ज़रूरी है, एंड दिस आई सी एज ए ओवरलुक कंसर्न जहाँ पे हम ध्यान नहीं देते हैं कहीं भी, बिकॉज वी जनरली फॉलो कि काम हो गया एंड दैट्स कंप्लीटली फाइन, बिकॉज इट्स ऑलवेज अबाउट स्पीड ऑल्सो, स्पीड मैटर्स, राइट। दूसरा चैलेंज एक मैं देखता हूँ, द ट्रेनिंग एंड द अपस्किलिंग पार्ट, राइट। हम एक बार जब ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में आ जाते हैं, राइट, देन वी hardly have time to learn new skills, hardly have time to acquire or learn new skills, though we say, though we focus keys, let's learn, let's develop new skills, but in practicality that hardly happens, right? So this is also one of the area I see, and I have seen personally that less focus and overlook by the organization on upskilling and the training part for their employees and for their teams, right, is something also put sometime organization on the back seat, right. Last but not the least in this, basically I would also say that the people's part here, right, their motivations, their well-being, their personal life, is something mostly overlooked, right, because it's always about outcome, it's always about impact, right, it's always about the work, right. So we talk about, though the organization talk about though that well-being program, personal life and whatnot, right, but in practicality they likes, right, they likes, heavily नहीं हो पाता है कई बार चीजें, लोग अंडर प्रेशर काम करते हैं और हम उनको अंडरमाइन कर लेते हैं फिर चीजों को कि ये कोई सिचुएशन नहीं है, एंड ओवरलुक करते हैं, एंड ड्यू टू दिस these kind of situation happen, right. So for me I think this is also one of the important aspect जिसको organization overlook करती हैं generally.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So this is nice to hear. Uh, if I talk about laws, so cybersecurity laws evolving overnight due to ever-changing technical landscape in the field. How do you keep up with the compliance and also ensure that security practices align with the regulatory requirements of the regulatory authorities?
So, इसका भी मैं वही एक आंसर देना चाहूँगा स्नेहा यहाँ पे कि when you start reading, when you are connected with your folks, when you connected with the regulatory bodies, right, and you also understand the objective of your business, right, तो उसमें आपको आसानी होती है कि when you know कि how regulators changing the law, how based on the technology, based on the landscape changing, based on the government instruction, based on the political changes happening, right. So when you start keeping an eye on all these happenings globally, right, तब आपको पता लगता है कि when you, let's say you are using PCI DSS, you are using ISO, you are also following the HIPAA, you are also using the SOX, right, and framework, right. तो इनको जो regulatory bodies govern करती है, जो ensure करती है कि every organization who is choosing our framework for their operation and their the business, right, they follow these standards, right, they follow these practices, right, so that they compliant, right. और जब वो अपडेट करते हैं तो इट इज योर ड्यूटी एज ए सिक्योरिटी प्रोफेशनल कि आप उनसे टच में रहो, यू रीड दोज रिपोर्ट्स जो जो लोग वो पब्लिश करते हैं, एंड देन यू आल्सो स्टे कनेक्टेड विद द वेंडर्स या फिर जो भी आपके आपको हेल्प जिन्होंने की है कि उस फ्रेमवर्क को डिप्लॉय करने में. Second part is your compliance team, because every organization has a dedicated compliance team जो big organization होती हैं. Then you get stay in touch with them because they have the complete and full information. They cannot take a chance to miss any of the update from the regulators, right, because sometimes it comes with a heavy penalty for non compliant, right. So उनसे आपको एक huge information मिलती है. और इसमें तीसरी चीज है जो मुझे लगता है कि is a very good wealth of information about keeping yourself aligned with the compliance, right, for when you have to follow those regulatory requirement is having the regular internal and external audits, right, because when you do audit, right, when you conduct audit for your organization, you find gaps, right, you identify gaps and then see कि अगर वो misaligned हैं या फिर compliance में नहीं आ रहे हैं for that particular framework, right. So I think these are some of the steps, and I also ensure that I also participate in all these three to at least stay updated that and stay compliance also about those regulatories, the requirements for any of the framework.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, sir, would it be possible if you could share a particular challenging incident response case you come across and would you learn from managing it?
I had seen many incidents, but I think talking about very particularly by taking the name would not be feasible here. But in one of the incident that I saw was related to supply chain attack, right? In one of the organization that I worked for one of the customer, right? I would say, right. So there was a supply chain attack, right, where they were consuming some of the services from a third party vendor, right, which somehow got compromised, and from there that hacker actually planted something malicious into their infra, and from there that malicious code basically snaked into the customer environment, right. And due to that, their machine, since it was a trusted source, right, no security the control actually flagged that, or throw an alert, and every control trusted that, and it then spread it across their environment, right. So when this report came, as I mentioned, the threat intelligence, right, that time threat intelligence becomes super useful, right. We came to know that this is something happening. We then dive into their the environment. We found that, hey, I think you are also part of that, you are the victim
Yeah.
of this attack, right. And then we initiated this incident response. We somehow contained that machine, isolated, and we were able to restore their operation, though it did not impacting them much. But I think this is interesting, the incident that uh, I handle along with my team for one of the customer.
Okay. So, what you learned from managing it? Is there anything particular you experienced from this one?
No, definitely. I think zero trust, right? In security, you cannot trust on the technology completely, right? So trusting on the trusted system itself, was not enough, because that code, that vendor, and every channel was trusted, right, and that was breached by the hacker, right. So trusted channel itself, when the trusted channel itself was breached by the hacker, what will you trust for, right. So zero trust, I think, is something has to be in place. When you are handling the incident, you have to double check, right. You have to ensure that, no, if you have done this, let me validate and confirm whether you did it right, right. And then the having the risk management for third party also is something should be in place, right. Though
Yeah.
nowadays every organization is a department itself, the third party risk management, but I think that is something should not be overlooked, right. That should be very stringent, right, because you are opening your door for some third party, and you do not know how and why and when that third party got breached. Generally they do not report to you. They always want to keep themselves, right. So this TPRM comes handy and very crucial tool in that case, right. Perform a super critical audit to their technology process and policy, how they handle the information, how their network is established, how you are connected with that. I think this is also that third party risk management should be super, if you are dealing with the third party, right. And the updated threat intelligence, I think, is something needs to be in place, right. uh, Nowadays security has so much evolved that you cannot live without the threat intelligence, because it provides you the context. As I said earlier, that sometimes you know about threat even before they touch or hit your organization, if you have a solid threat intelligence into your organization. So I think that's what I learned from, and we recommend also accordingly, and then I think it was fine thereafter.
Okay, so threat intelligence is really important for every organization, I guess. So, also there is a question I would like to ask to you. I guess everyone wants to know this. A career in cybersecurity can be very demanding and challenging. So, how do you maintain a balance between professional and personal life?
I think it's always about the time management, right? How do you want to, and how much involved that you want to yourself into your office, and how you want to segregate your personal life and office life is something very personal. I think it depends on man to man. But when it comes to me personally, I think I always try to keep my personal and my office life separate, right? I do not want to indulge between what is happening in my office, then I am involved into my personal life, right? The delegating the task to your team and to your subordinate or ordinates accordingly, so that you do not take everything on your hand, right? Uh, and this can be correlate back to the defining the clear roles and responsibility, right? You as a professional completing the task on the time, and that is where your the punctuality and discipline comes into the place, right? If you are completing your task, as APJ Abdul Kalam sir say, that if you cannot finish your office from 9 to 5, and if you are stretching yourself, means you did not work, you are not working, right? So if you are able to finish your job on time, I think you have enough time for your personal life, for your family, for your hobbies, right? And then take a break in the between, right? So you, it's not required that you just sit in front of the system completely. Take a break in between, right? So spare time for your hobbies, spare time for sports, spare time for your friends, your family, right? These all, I think, not so unique, not so this thing, but I think this is something which is helping me to maintain segregation, or maintain a good balance between my personal and my professional life.
Okay.
Hmm.
I guess this also helps people to balance their professional and personal life.
No,
Also,
definitely.
those lastly, what advice would you give to our audience if someone from them is aspiring to reach a leadership position in cybersecurity? Like you, maybe.
So leadership is not a tag or not a title. Leadership is something that a quality, right? When you start leading, when you start taking ownership, right, you are a leader, right? You are already a leader, right? But when we see those tag, those, the positions, right, and that can only be attained by, uh, putting up a significant amount of time, into that, industry, into that, the organization,
Yeah.
or likewise, right. So if you ask me about the advice, like, after completing this much time into the industry, and including my armed forces also, I would say, first you have to master, right? First you have to attain that mastery into the technicals, right? Because as a leader, right, into the cybersecurity, technical is something is very much required, right? You need to understand the challenge that you faced personally, and then your team faces, how you can enable them to overcome from those challenges, right? Because when you face challenges, how did you overcome? So that becomes experience for you, that you will share with the team, right? Alongside this, I would say that developing the soft skill, decision making, right? Then you see your leaders, how they are behave and act in the and during the stress time, right? Bias for action, right? Lead from the front, right? The collaboration, right? The more you collaborate with people, the more you will become a known face, right? And then the understanding the business and objective in whichever organization you are working. If you want to aiming for a leadership position, you have to understand the business and objective, how it runs, what it takes to run the operations of that business. Now all this, basically is something, I would say, from the technical and the soft skill part, would help you to go on the next ladder, where we call that you are a leadership. Along with that, there are few things that also help very crucially, is that stay update, right, with the industry trends, right? Wherever you are working, like what are the trends, what things are going on, political, the movements, right? What is going good, what is going bad, right? From the news, the threats to your threat, understanding the threat landscape also, that ultimately will falls under the technicality, but understanding the threat landscape from the strategy point of view, from the political standpoint, right. Then as I said, build a strong network within the industry. The connect is always helpful, right? You should be a known face by your peers or by the industry, folks, that hey, I know you guy, right? And focus on the understanding of the cybersecurity as a whole, not only the technical one, but cybersecurity as a whole, right? How that security can impact the organization and the goals of the organization and customer, right? So इन सब चीजों का जो एक बैलेंस है या फिर मिक्सचर है, अगर ये सारी चीजें, and they all comes with the experience, and experience comes when you spend time, राइट? तो व्हेन यू स्टार्ट एज जूनियर, यू स्टार्ट लर्निंग, यू स्टार्ट स्पेंडिंग टाइम इन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, और ये सारी चीजें आप सीखते चलते हो, राइट? आज आपने एक चीज सीखी, दैट विल बिकम एक्सपीरियंस फॉर यू, एंड देन यू कैन शेयर विद योर जूनियर. When the moment you share with your junior your knowledge, you are a leader. You are a leader, you are a
That's
mentor.
right.
That's how you achieve a tag of leadership. वो positions बाद में आती हैं, where you spend many years into the industry, but leadership is something कि वो पहले दिन से भी आ सकती है. Now that is not required to have you as director, CISO or anything, right, manager. वो पहले दिन से भी आ सकती है. But अगर हम बात करते हैं उन tags की, I think this is something that one needs to know and attain if they want to be there.
Okay. That's really great advice. I guess everyone who is watching will follow this and be a good leader. And for today, thank you so much, sir. That was really an insightful session. And I'm really lucky to do this podcast with you. And yeah, please.
Thank you so much, Neha. I think it was very enlightening, talking to you, and very fruitful, I would say. I hope I was able to share my experience, right? To when within an hour, you will not never be able to, share the whole, but I hope it was, helpful for the people who is on the listening mode. But thank you so much for this opportunity. Really looking forward for other engagements as well. And all the very best
That's
for the people who is listening this. And yep, thank you.
great. And thank you to everyone who is watching. Be sure to join us next week for more expert discussions. And don't forget to subscribe to stay connected with the latest in security and tech. Until then, stay safe, stay curious. We are always besides you. Thanks, everyone. Signing off. Sneha.